Alright, in this video we're going to take a look at how you communicate between the Hummingbird and microbit and your computer. I've left some links down below for those who might be viewing this from outside our organization to help you with setting up the Bluebird Connector. So the Bluebird Connector is an app that sits on your computer, and once installed and launched, you will get something that looks like what you see on the screen here. The Bluebird Connector immediately looks for any microbits that might be in the local area that have been set up and ready to go, and it identifies them using a 3-letter combination randomly. And so mine happens to be called the Ticklish Quartz Manatee, and if you look at my microbit, it's actually flashing TQM, and that's how we've identified the right microbit for the connection. If you're in a classroom full of microbits, you're going to have a bunch listed in your list here, all flashing at the same time, available for selection. So you want to know which one you have using that 3-letter combination. And in this case, I only have the one set up and going, so I'm just going to click on the plus sign. It's going to connect, and it's ready to launch Snap. Now the thing is, if you did not see any microbit listed there, you need to click on Find Robots, and it'll actually do a new search if in fact it didn't see it the first time around. In my case, it just happened to see it right when it popped up. Alright, I then click on Snap at the bottom here, and in my browser the Snap coding language launches. Now had I gone to just snap.berkeley.edu, I would have opened up something very similar, but what I wouldn't have seen are these Hummingbird blocks and microbit blocks that get added at the bottom of each of these categories here, which is really kind of nice. If you've ever programmed in Scratch before, this looks very similar. You'll see that you have the coding blocks off to the left based by category. You have your coding area here that you grab those blocks and combine them and put them here. And then you have the graphical area up here on the right. We won't be using that in Robot Petting Zoo, but you do have this option just like Scratch to make things happen on the screen. So before we get into the actual coding, I do want to just make you aware of what features within Snap are specific to the Hummingbird and the microbit. So in the motion category, you'll see down at the bottom, generally anything under this Make a Block is where you'll find the Hummingbird and microbit blocks. And so I'm going to pull these two out. These are for controlling different types of servo motors. For our class, we're going to be using the positional servo or position servo, and we'll talk about that in a later video. Under the looks category, we have the LEDs, the tricolor LEDs, the way to print something onto the actual microbit display, and then of course the microbit display lights right here. Under sound, we have the ability within the Hummingbird to play notes on the little speaker that's controlled by the Hummingbird. We don't have anything under the pen. Under controls, we have a stop all, which is kind of like an end block for making sure that lights are turned off or motors stop moving. We have under sensing, we have a few different blocks. We have the sensor block for the Hummingbird, the sensor block for the microbit, and then some of these other blocks here. And again, we'll get into each of these. Notice how these are shaped differently, and this is one of the great things about Scratch or Snap is that they identify blocks differently. So for example, blocks that have this sort of dome at the top are called hat blocks, and those are generally how you start a bit of code. The stack blocks are the ones that have these little ridges here, and they stack up one to the other. Boolean blocks are the ones with the pointed edges or the pointed sides. Reporter blocks are the rounded shapes. C blocks look like a C, and then cap blocks are the ones at the bottom that you can't add anything under. And so these are the different types of blocks, and we'll get into these in later videos, but just a good way to identify how these blocks are used, and because of their shape, identifying how they're actually working. Okay, I think that is all under operators. There's nothing additional, and under variables, of course, we can make new variables, but there's nothing additional added from Hummingbird or microbit.